my name is Tuấn. On behalf of Group 2 from ct39b, I will start our presentation about food aid in general and the World Food Program as well as the Food and Agriculture Organization in specific. Nowadays, globalization is a general trend of the world and becoming an important part of every country. In order to support globalization, the governments of many countries have to take responsibilities of helping each other. One typical example of this is food aid. Food aid plays a very crucial role in the policies of many governments. So what is food aid? In general, it is about providing food and related assistance to tackle hunger, emergency situations, or to help with deeper, longer-term hunger alleviation and achieve food security where people do not have to live in hunger or in fear of starvation. Now, let's take a look at who food aid normally aims at. Food is given to countries in urgent need of food supplies, especially if they have just experienced a natural disaster. Food aid can be provided by importing food from the donor, buying food locally, or providing cash. Most of the world's hungry live in developing countries. According to the latest Food and Agriculture Organization statistics from 2013, there are 842 million hungry people in the world and 98% of them are in developing countries. So in general, there are four groups that food aid targets. First of all, people from rural areas. 3/4 of all hungry people live in rural areas, mainly in villages and Asia and Africa, overwhelmingly dependent on agriculture for their food. These populations have no alternate source of income or employment. As a result, they are vulnerable to crisis. Many migrate to cities in their search for employment, swelling the ever-expanding populations of shanty towns in developing countries. The hungry farmers. FAO calculates that around half of the world's hungry people are from smallholder farming communities, surviving off marginal lands prone to natural disasters like drought or flood. Another 20% belong to landless families dependent on farming, and about 10% live in communities whose livelihoods depend on herding, fishing, or forest resources. The remaining 20% live in shanty towns on the periphery of the biggest cities in developing countries. The numbers of poor and hungry city dwellers are rising rapidly along with the world's total urban population. Thirdly is the children. An estimated 146 million children in developing countries are underweight, the result of an acute or chronic hunger. According to the State of World Children, UNICEF 2009, all too often, child hunger is inherited. Up to 17 million children are born underweight annually, the result of inadequate nutrition before and during pregnancy. Now, last but not least is women. Women are the world's primary food producers, yet cultural traditions and social structures often mean women are much more affected by hunger and poverty than men. A mother who is stunned or underweight due to an inadequate diet often gives birth to low birth weight children. Around 50% of pregnant women in developing countries are iron deficient. According to UNICEF, lack of iron means 315,000 women die annually from hemorrhage at childbirth. As a result, women, and in particular expectant and nursing mothers, often need special or increased intake of food.
My name is Vin, and now I will provide you some information on two typical organizations whose duty is to seek and provide food aid for the one in need. The World Food Program is a food assistance branch of the United Nations and the world-largest humanitarian organization addressing hunger and promoting food security. country office around the world. The WFP works to help people who are unable to produce or obtain enough food for themselves and their families. It's the member of the United Nations Development Group and part of its Executive Committee. WFP tries to eradicate hunger and malnutrition with the ultimate goal in mind of eliminating the need for food aid itself. The objectives that the WFP hope to achieve are to: number one, supply and protect livelihood in emergencies; number two, support food security and nutrition, and rebuild livelihood in fragile settings and following emergencies; number three, reduce risk and enable people, community, and countries to meet their own food and nutrition needs; number four, reduce unusual and break the intergenerational circle of hunger. WFP food aid is also directed to find micronutrient deficiency, reduce child mortality, improve manual health, and combat disease, include HIV and AIDS. Food for Work program help promote environmental and economic stability and agricultural production. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations (FAO) is an agency of the United Nations that leads international efforts to defeat hunger, serving both developed and developing countries. FAO acts as an neutral forum where all nations meet as an equal to negotiate an agreement and debate policies. FAO is also a source of knowledge and information and help developing countries and countries in transition modernize and improve agricultural, forestry, and fishery practice, ensuring good, natural, and food security for all. Let's outline the following priorities in its fight against hunger. Number one, help eliminate hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition. Contribute to the eradication of hunger by facilitating policies and policy commission to support food security and by making sure that up-to-date information about hunger and nutrition challenges and solutions are available and accessible. Number two, make agriculture, forestry, and fishery more productive and sustainable. Promote ingredient-based policies and practices to support highly productive agricultural sector, crop, livestock, reduce rural poverty, help the rural poor gain access to the resources and services they need, including rural employment and social protection to force a path out of poverty. Number four, enable inclusive and efficient agricultural and food system. Has to build safe and efficient food system that support smallholder agriculture and reduce poverty and hunger in rural areas. Increasing the seriousness of the livelihoods for disaster. Help countries to prepare for natural and human-caused disaster by reducing the risk and enhancing the resilience of their food and agricultural system.
About the pros and cons of food aid comes from WFP and FAO. We know that everything has two aspects. Food aid is no exception. Although food aid is born for good reasons, that is helping people in need of food, it also has some decent disadvantages. Evaluations of WFP food aid programs show that food aid has a positive impact on agriculture production. Some recent studies and evaluations of food aid programs have highlighted some of the impacts of food aid and on the food market. The biggest problem is that food aid creates discouragement for local food producers by flooding the market and depressing prices. The delivery of food aid is to developing countries seem like an uncontroversial CEO policy, a straightforward effort that helps the poor and underscores the generosity of donor nations. Debated the merits of food aid by increasing the local supply of food. Such aid may depress the prices and thus undercut the income of rural farmers in the recipient nations. For example, it also may discourage local production, and since the poor often are concentrated in rural
Food aid, in fact, may disproportionately hurt the poor. The delivery of food aid is affected by and potentially affects the emergency environment. Besides being a basic survival need for people, food aid can serve also as a strategic source for conflict parties. In this sense, food aid can be viewed as an economic good. The trending political and military parties that is turned into a source of power and influence. Furthermore, food aid delivery often reinforces market distortions. In addition to negative impacts on commodity markets, food aid especially affects local labor markets. In spite of the fact that there are some problems with food aid from the two organizations toward many countries, the advantages that they provide are undeniable. In emergencies, WFP is on the front line, delivering food to save the lives of victims of war, civil conflict, and natural disasters. After the cost of an emergency has passed, WFP uses food to help communities rebuild their shelter life, while FAO's responsibility to achieve food security for all by raising level of nutrition, improving agriculture productivity and natural resource management, and improving the lives of rural populations. FAO has carried out an important program called FAO Goodwill Ambassadors to provide food aid. The main purpose of the program is to attract public and media attention to unacceptable situation that some 1 billion people continue to suffer from chronic hunger and malnutrition in a time of unprecedented life of misery and are denied the most basic of human rights, the right to having food. So we see that even when there are some disadvantages coming from the help of WFP and FAO, the benefits that they bring are very essential to the world. That's why these two organizations are good tools and channels to alleviate hunger and make the world a better place.
Hello, my name is Huyền, and now I will conclude our group presentation by showing the achievement brought by food aid in general. Food supply is always a significant issue, especially in the 21st century when the global population increased exponentially. The food problem becomes more vital and imperative. In that context, the UN WFP has removed the pressure burdening the shoulder of many countries, and the World Program is known as one of the most successful programs UN have ever ratified because of its enormous impact on the global community. Every year, the UN feeds 104 million people in 18 countries. They feed people in war zone, natural disaster, health emergency, and poor countries. As most of us remember, in 2010 and 11, the earthquake disaster that happened in Haiti and Japan respectively destroyed infrastructure and changed the life of its residents for the worse. In those circumstances, the UN stepped in and provided the residents in the devastating area with aid in food supply and other necessities. But the World Program is not only helpful when natural disaster happen, but it also helps stabilize the food security. Right now, the UN is trying to expand the spectrum of its World Program with the support of many countries in the world. The first thing is food deliveries to Hungary. Since the 12th January, WFP has reached a total of 3.5 million people in food aid. Despite massive logistical and organizational challenges, we reached 3 million people within 6 weeks after the initial phase of emergency food distribution. WFP shifted to more targeted action through school meal program, nutritional support, and complete food basket to them. Now, the second thing is coordination and stabilization. WFP coordinates with national government, mayor office, community leader, NGO, aid group, and military contingent to organize early food distribution. The system set up became the model for subsequent target distribution. Haitian saw that the international community could accomplish peaceful, organized distribution, and this helped camp a barely second population. Thereby, a last achievement is leadership in logistics and telecom. WFP led logistic operation that rebuilt the port and other infrastructure needed to bring in and move tens of thousands of tons of food and critical relief supplies. WFP also provided telecom services that were essential in the early days of the emergency. Through UNHAS, the UN Humanitarian Air Service, WFP transported air work throughout the country quickly. And this is the end of our presentation. We hope that we are able to provide some helpful information to the viewer. Thank you for your listening.